Hello guys, I just got back from Laracon US 2025, my first ever Laracon US, and as soon as my voice has recovered somewhat, I'm ready to tell you all the news and announcements that were uncovered on stage of Laracon. It's quite a lot. So in this video I will show you new features of Pest 4, Livewire 4, Laravel Forge 2.0 as they call it, including Laravel VPS, which is a new thing. Also, we'll talk about new upcoming Laravel package for AI and new functions in already existing package Wayfinder. They announced so many things, but I tried to summarize it and strip it down to basically what main things you need to know or what I think are the most important announcements. Let's dive in. While talking about the new features and announcements, I will show various screenshots from live streams on YouTube from Laracon US. They are public. I will link them in the description below if you want to watch them all or some specific talks. It's all available. And let's start with Pest 4. When Nuno Maduro came on stage to present Pest 4, he started with a few new things and then kind of hyped the audience in his own style. I remember one phrase like, if you're clapping, you're not ready for what's coming. And at first I thought it's a typical Nuno style, hyping things, but then he dropped bomb after bomb after bomb. Let me show you. So first, Pest 4 will have browser testing, which basically replaces Laravel Dusk. And Nuno had a few even jokes on stage about Laravel Dusk, like if you're using Laravel Dusk, you're not really testing, you just trust and assume that it works. Which is kind of true because Laravel Dusk is flaky, you cannot trust it 100%. With this Pest 4, it's kind of a new generation of browser testing, which, according to Nuno Maduro, finally, for the first time ever, browser testing in PHP that actually works. And you can see the syntax on the screen. Visit, click, type, and assert C, and the tests are passing. Next thing Nuno showed was smoke testing, including JavaScript assertions. So look at the code. You visit the route, which is the same browser testing, but then look at the assertions. Assert no JavaScript errors and no console logs left in the code. So basically you don't need to look at browser console anymore for errors. It can be automatically checked with Pest. Next thing introduced was visual testing. So you see assert screenshot matches. And the first time you run that test, it would create the screenshot of the web browser, and then the second time it would compare to the first version, and if there are any differences in pixels, it will flag them as passed or failed tests. So this would be the result of failed tests. Screenshot does not match the last one. And the most exciting thing about that kind of wowed the audience was --diff. If you run the test with --diff, then in case of error, the browser would appear right away automatically with a button on the top left corner called slider, where you would be able to slide between left and right, before and after, and see the actual difference in CSS or how it looks and spot the actual difference. Pretty impressive if you ask me. Now I feel like I'm hyping this thing similar to Nuno Maduro, but it's actually impressive. And when I tweeted about Pest 4 and posted a LinkedIn post, they were by far the #1 posts according to likes and engagement, so people are really genuinely excited about Pest 4. Final features to mention here with browsing testing, it works with parallel, which means faster, and also they introduced a new thing called sharding, which they use themselves in Laravel core team for Laravel Cloud, if I remember correctly. So instead of waiting for 10 minutes for tests to run, they shard it into separate processes, each taking 2 minutes. So this is what comes in Pest 4 related to performance. Now the question is when? And this is the date at the bottom right corner of this YouTube video. August 21 is the planned release date for Pest 4 at Laravel Live Denmark. Nuno also told there will be some beta release before that, so stay tuned for the updates. But basically, in a few weeks, we will have all of those goodies from Pest 4. Are you as impressed as I am? Shoot in the comments below. Let's move on to other announcements. The next topic is Livewire 4 by Caleb Porzio. So I decided to first talk about non-official releases like Pest and Livewire, and then we move on to Laravel core keynote announcements. So anyway, Livewire, Caleb was a great performer on stage in his style, really enjoyed that. The way he presents, the personality, the jokes. You should definitely watch that in full to get the full context. But now, let's see what's inside upcoming Livewire 4. The first thing you need to know, according to Caleb, is that Livewire 4 has mostly no breaking changes so far. This is the exact quote. So probably upgrading from Livewire 3 to 4 will not break your projects. But if you do want to use Livewire 4 features and structure, there will be quite a few changes for how components are structured. So Caleb was talking about Livewire Vault and polarizing opinions about that. So some people are sold like Mateusz, but then pretty much everyone on Reddit thought that Vault is not the best thing in the world, so to speak. And to be honest, I'm in that camp. I don't personally like or use Vault, but this is just one of the options. And to solve that problem, Vault or no Vault, Caleb introduced another option to structure components. So when you launch PHP Artisan Make Livewire in Livewire 4, this will be the default. I tried to make a screenshot and zoom in, sorry for the quality. So by default, it will not make app Livewire PHP class. It will be in resources, views, components, not even Livewire, as one blade file with PHP on top. Basically, Vault becomes the default. And also see that emoji before counter blade. Basically, this is one way how you understand that it's a Livewire component and not blade component. And this is optional. This was demonstrated as one of the flags with Make Livewire. And yes, people are... And this emoji is optional. At some point, I thought it was a joke maybe because it was demonstrated with some flag specifically on stage. And yes, people are already talking about that on Reddit. And you can read the opinions. I will link that post in the description below. But more than that, you can also generate a so-called multi-file component, MFC flag from what I remember, which would look like this. So no app Livewire at all, it seems like. There will be resources, views, components, and then there will be a folder inside of that for your component, which contains blade file, then PHP class, then JavaScript as well separately. It may be, it's optional, and then even test file. So it's kind of co-location by folder. To be honest, personally, I have mixed feelings about that. So another way to get used to structure things, not sure. Maybe it will make more sense after we try, after Livewire 4 is released. And for me personally, it will add more work to shoot more tutorials or reshoot the older ones for another syntax option, how to use Livewire. So this was the Livewire 4 structural changes, which were, let's say, a bit unexpected and maybe controversial. But then Caleb showed a few new things which were totally awesome, no questions asked. Let me show you. First, he collaborated with Nunu Maduro, or in fact Nunu offered his help to introduce Pest 4 inside of Livewire 4. Again, a bit closer screenshot. Here's how it looks. You can do browser testing with Pest 4. You saw that already a few minutes ago inside of Livewire 4. So Livewire visit, click and assert C. This was done by Nunu Maduro 5 days before the conference, after he saw Livewire 4 and decided to integrate both. Next, Caleb was talking about blade optimizations, blade components. For example, for Xcard, this is what is rendered under the hood in PHP layer, which makes rendering of blade components pretty slow if you have a lot of components on the same page, like thousands. Then you really feel the performance issues. So as a solution, Caleb introduced Blaze, which you can see the name on the top right corner. I didn't catch whether it will be a package like Livewire Blaze or Laravel Blaze, but as a result of that, the blade component rendering goes down to just one line, which makes it blazingly fast. This is where the name comes from, Blaze. And according to Caleb, this would improve the speed outside of Livewire. Just blade component set on any blade page could be much faster. Potentially, maybe we will see Blaze as the first-party package inside of Laravel one day, who knows? Because I remember in Filament, Dan Harin improved Filament 4 performance with tables, which render a lot of blades. So Filament has internal solution for that, and now Caleb has another different solution. And if you compare no Blaze versus Blaze, so a page like this with a lot of blade components, without Blaze on stage, it showed 1.66 seconds. So this is the time, and also 29,000 blade views according to the debug bar. Now with Blaze, the result of the same page after the reload is 131 milliseconds and only 100 blade views. Very impressive. And then probably the most impressive thing of Livewire 4 is called Islands, which is another term, the new keyword for partial rendering, which was a performance issue in Livewire. So imagine you have a few dynamic things on the page, and if you do some wire pull or click somewhere, then the full component was re-rendering. Now, for example, here you can see island in the code, which represents visually this chart, which is now separated from the rest of the page. So you can refresh or wire pull, and it would reload just that without affecting anything on the page in other places of that Livewire component. And this is another example. For example, you have reports, and then you have island reports, and then outside of that island, you have a button with wire click. In this case, he showed infinite pagination or load more button, and you can do wire island, which would re-render that specific block. Again, without re-rendering any other islands or any other codes on the same page. So I think this will be a huge performance improvements for pages with complex Livewire dynamic structures. So yeah, this was Livewire 4 presented on stage, but Caleb didn't announce when. So on stage, he didn't tell anything about the date or beta version or waiting list. But before the conference, Caleb sent an email to the list of Livewire users with some information for the context. So again, there is no specific timeline right now. There are just a few data points, including Josh working full-time at Livewire. This is cool. So this is where Caleb reinvests the profits and revenue from Flux, which will help to deliver Livewire 4 faster. But at this point, we have no official dates scheduled. Next, we move on to the official Laravel team keynote, which was really long, 2.5 hours altogether. So we'll talk about AI coding kit Boost, then we'll talk about Forge and VPS, and then we'll talk about open source stuff with Wayfinder and Inertia. And even now I see that this video will be quite long, so probably I will skip mentioning some of the things and you should watch the keynote yourself. But the main things you need to know will totally be in this video, and we'll start with my favorite new stuff from that conference is AI coding starter kit. They call it Laravel Boost. This is a first-party package created mostly by Ashley, new developer on the team, which started recently after Laravel Live UK. After he's done the presentation in London about his AI stuff, now he does that full-time at Laravel, and this looks pretty impressive and promising. So when you install Laravel Boost, which is basically just Composer require, then you run Boost install, and then you choose what do you want to install. So Boost comes with 3 basic main features or components, which is MCP server, which allows you to run commands in your AI coding assistants, prompting AI to do something for you. Then they have documentation, the latest documentation of Laravel ecosystem, not just the core, but also older versions are sliced, vectorized, and available with the package. So it basically for AI coders replaces external MCP like Context 7. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, I started a separate channel, AI Coding Daily, where I will share my experiences with AI coding, not necessarily with Laravel, but I will definitely use Laravel Boost in the future videos, so subscribe to that channel if you want to know more about AI coding. Now back to Boost. So we have MCP, we have documentation, and also we have guidelines. So Laravel will have first-party guidelines for, again, all Laravel ecosystem packages like Pest, Inertia, or others, which will basically generate the rules and guidelines file for whichever IDE you use. So Claude MD files, cursor rules, GitHub Copilot guidelines, and from what I remember, there was the 4th Juni PHP Storm guidelines. Then Ashley showed the use cases for MCP servers. So for example, you can write a prompt. This is in cursor, add a random new contact for a new organization called Laracon is cool. And then Boost MCP server will call the tool for database queries, then called a tool Tinker, which basically will create that record in your database just from your prompt to AI assistant. Another use case of MCP server, you have a prompt getting a white screen of death in my browser. That's it, no more context. And then Boost MCP server will call the errors from the logs. There is a separate tool called read log entries, and then it may fix your issue just from that prompt. And then example with MCP server, how to search the dogs. The prompt is what's str helper for some transformation. The tool called search docs, and then the result is this. The method you're looking for is str headline. And then he showed an example of MDC file for cursor with guidelines. So with the guidelines, the AI assistant would understand the versions of your project, PHP version, Inertia version, and whatever else you're using here. And then those guidelines, as Ashley said, will be kind of a combined effort from the community. It will be open source, so all of us could contribute to make them better. And then again, as with other announcements, the question is when? And the answer is the same, not yet. This is kind of the main pattern of all the announcements. Everything that was announced has not been released right away, sadly. So I went back to the hotel after Laracon, and I had nothing to actually play around with or review or tweet or something. All of the announcements are promised sometime soon. But in case of Boost, Ashley promised that it should be launched in 2 weeks, which is pretty soon. We can wait for that. But personally, I'm very excited for Laravel Boost. Next, the thing that many people were waiting for, because Taylor teased it quite a lot, news about Laravel Forge. Internally, they call it Laravel Forge 2.0 because there are a lot of fundamental changes and new functions. First, the new design of Laravel Forge, which is kind of unifying the style with Laravel Cloud. So here I am on my Laravel Cloud dashboard. So you can basically feel at home whether you use Forge or Cloud. The design structurally is similar. But the design is not just about visual structure and colors. What James Brooks showed on stage is new command palette, which allows you to search the servers, execute some commands and stuff like that. This is kind of a trend, I think, in my personal opinion, in the way how people are switching to interact with chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude Code. A lot more websites will adopt something like that to prompt basically the website to do something instead of browsing manually. So this is coming in the new Forge. And another new thing inside of Forge is so-called Laravel VPS. So when provisioning a server on Forge, you can choose a provider called Laravel VPS, which is basically partnership, direct partnership, official partnership between Laravel and DigitalOcean. So if you want to create DigitalOcean droplet with Forge, you don't need to go anymore to DigitalOcean, create your key, then put the key inside of Forge, and then go back and forth between DigitalOcean and Forge. Now it's inside of Forge without going anywhere, and the prices are, let me zoom in, they're not finalized yet, but at least they announced that it will be the same prices as you would have them on DigitalOcean. And kind of side note about partnerships in general, this is a tricky situation, and it has been for many years. For Laravel, what do they choose as partners? Which packages? So some packages come and go. Third party becomes first party, and then some stuff changes in Composer JSON over the years of Laravel version updates, and that is also related to paid products. So what partnerships behind the scenes the business team of Laravel manages to get? So in this case, they're partnering with DigitalOcean. Some people in the community suggest that there should be different partners here and there. For example, many people on Reddit and Twitter mention Hensner, who would provide cheaper prices potentially for droplets than DigitalOcean, but Laravel doesn't have official partnership with Hensner, and I don't know whether they didn't approach or maybe they didn't have a deal, I don't know. And also it's not a direct comparison, apples to apples, between DigitalOcean and Hensner. From what I understand, I haven't used Hensner myself, it is cheaper in most cases, but also as I understand they don't have servers all over the world, and the choice of regions for your servers is more limited. So this is just one example of partnership. I just wanted to make it as a side note that Taylor and the business team need to have a choice of who to partner with. And I guess in many cases the choice is not only technical and not only the partnerships that community would want. But I personally use DigitalOcean and I'm happy with that change, and I will definitely use Laravel VPS. Next, what they showed on stage, and I feel my voice is getting down, so bear with me for like 5 to 10 more minutes, I guess. They showed how fast Laravel VPS is to provision. So if you used Forge, you'll probably get used to wait for 10 to 15 minutes to have a new droplet provisioned. Not anymore. On stage, they showed that from this screen to create the server to this server provisioned took 10 seconds. So this was pretty impressive, and in fact it should have been even faster when I talked outside of stage to the Laravel team. Wi-Fi at a conference was not ideal, so it should have been even faster than 10 seconds. So no more need to wait for 10 to 15 minutes on Forge with Laravel VPS. Next, the new feature that everyone was waiting for. Taylor actually revealed it even before the conference: zero downtime deployment coming from Envoyer to Laravel Forge directly as a part of deploy script. This is the zoomed in version again. So a separate directory is created for the release and then activated after all scripts are executed. They didn't say specifically what happens with Envoyer from here, but as I understand, it will be the same as with other products. It will still be operational if you want to use that, but Forge will become the recommended solution, and those who want to switch, like ourselves, for example, we use Envoyer in Laravel Daily Team, will probably cancel the Envoyer subscription for the next year and move that to Forge. Also, for Laravel VPS servers, Taylor demonstrated metrics. So basically, you don't need to go to DigitalOcean anymore to have the main metrics of your performance. It will be also directly in Forge. And then Taylor showed kind of, by the way, another feature, kind of a small feature, but it impressed the audience, myself included, very much, which is SSH into the server, which we used to do manually. So you have SSH key and then do stuff in your terminal. Not anymore. From Forge, you can click Control backtick, if I remember correctly, and then this appears at the bottom in roughly 3 or so seconds. This is again the zoomed in version of that screenshot. And talking with Laravel team behind the scenes, this is kind of the advantage of being at the conference. You can ask a lot more details. So they told us that this feature was kind of hackathon created just a few days before the conference. So yeah, that was Laravel Forge announcement, and I haven't even showed many more features, so you should watch the full keynote. And again, the same question, when? And in this case, the answer is pretty, well, sad. It comes in 8 weeks. They accept the testers for Laravel VPS, so you could go to vps.laravel.com and join the waitlist to test the Laravel VPS together with them. But the official release of New Forge is scheduled in roughly 8 weeks. And the final thing announced that I want to mention in this video, actually I will make it brief because my voice is getting out, and also you can watch the full keynote, and this is kind of more niche. Open source update by Joe Tannenbaum, really impressive, about Inertia and TypeScript improvements. So let me quickly demonstrate a few of them. So for Inertia forms, for example, instead of this typical syntax with use form and then form.post, they will be changed to this: import form, not use form, and then you have form here, and then the whole syntax becomes much shorter. And for other big part of his talk, Joe was talking about minimizing the gap between JavaScript and PHP, or in fact TypeScript and PHP, based on the recently released package Laravel Wayfinder, which is already out, and you can use it, but they will improve it a lot so that TypeScript would have much more understanding of the backend, including changes you can make in Laravel code, which would be immediately available in JS, or more correctly in TS. So this is one example. Similar example with Inertia, you would have form submit store with import store from the controller. This is Wayfinder, but it will be much more powerful, and they promise to release the new version sometime in the fall. Again, another case where something is announced but not released, and if you are into TypeScript and strict types, you should watch the full part of the keynote by Joe Tannenbaum. Finally, let's talk about pricing. There are a few price drops, price changes. So for example, for Laravel Cloud, now custom domains are included in the starter plan. So this was one of the main limitations kind of for people to start on cloud. $20 per month was basically if they want to use cloud for real domains. Now custom domains are included in the starter plan. Also, in one of the official emails by Laravel team, there was announcements that MySQL prices on Laravel Cloud will drop, basically almost 2x. Also for Nightwatch, they announced that price of additional events will drop, and you can see the prices before and after on the screen, but also the amount of events per plan is also increased. That was announced even earlier before the conference. So this is the email from July 3rd. It was already in action, 50% more free events across all Nightwatch plans. So what I'm saying here is that Laravel team is trying to make the products affordable, partially financially supported by customers themselves. So this is a slide from Tom's presentation. Tom is a president and COO at Laravel, basically, as I understand it, second person in the company after Taylor in terms of business hierarchy. So he told that there are 15,000 customers on Laravel Cloud and 10,000 customers on Laravel Nightwatch. So great start, and they are now reinvesting that in lowering prices where they can afford to do so. So yeah, this was Laracon US 2025. I haven't mentioned a lot of small details like light theme on Nightwatch, for example, or other small features and perks. So again, you can watch the full keynotes or even full videos if you have a lot of free time. I will link them in the description below. This is probably by far my longest video about any Laracons ever. That should probably mean something, how much was announced. Unfortunately, not much was released, but that means we'll have a very excited autumn period after everyone is back in the offices after summer holidays. So I will definitely review a lot of things in August and September, including upcoming, for example, Filament 4 release out of beta version. So subscribe to the channel to not miss any of that. What do you think about new announcements? Which ones are your favorite? Which one will you use? What questions do you have that I may pass to Taylor and the team? I'm not on the official team, but now having been to US, I feel like I can approach the guys easier or know the specific person to ask the right questions. So let me know in the comments below, and see you guys in other videos.